What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to episode 25 of Bound to Improve. My name is Landon Eller.
And I'm Chris Pound, and the book that we decided to read this week was Rework by Jason Fried and David Hansson.
Yeah, so the main message of Rework is it challenges the conventional wisdom about running a business, breaking down myths, and offering a new, simpler approach. The book advocates for action over planning, flexibility over rigid strategies, and a focus on real work rather than a workaholic culture.
Yeah, the first kind of chapters here where the real world is just an excuse. People use the real world as justification for why things won't work. The reality is, success comes from challenging norms, not blindly accepting them.
Yeah, so if stems from when you hear people say, oh, you can't do that in the real world. Yes, you can. There's just probably a way that's unconventional, and you have to go and figure it out for yourself.
Yeah, the real world isn't a place, it's an excuse. It's a justification for not trying.
Yeah.
Yep.
So moving on to, and we're just briefly highlighting the main themes of each section here.
Yeah, the whole concept of rework is cutting out things that are not needed. When we think about what separates a good director from a great director, right? A great director will cut good scenes in order to produce a great movie. And so this is kind of what we're also trying to incorporate, and we hope you guys enjoy it.
Yeah, it's what Jason and David incorporated as well.
Yeah, their book was double the length that they originally started with, but they felt like they just needed to cut whatever wasn't necessary.
Yeah. So getting back into it here, the next theme here is learning from mistakes is overrated. And this point I thought was interesting because you hear that all the time, learn from your failures.
Yeah.
But they say success provides better lessons than failures because with success, you know the next step forward. But with failures, you just know what not to do again in the future.
Yeah, success gives you real ammunition, and it gives you the firepower to keep going. So it's almost like those little wins that matter, that they kind of compound over time, and that's important to understand and to not kind of get ahead of yourself.
Yeah, and research even points to this fact as well. A Harvard business study shows that 34% of entrepreneurs who had a successful first run will have a successful second run versus just 23% of entrepreneurs who failed at their first time and are trying a new venture, which is like the same as starting a new business for the first time. So having that success really plays into it and what you come away with it.
Yeah, I guess to me, what that's saying is that people almost kind of get addicted to the success that they're seeing, and that makes them want to continue to go. And when you first kind of fail right off the bat, you're kind of demoralized, and you don't feel like continuing going. And so I can kind of see how these numbers do make sense. The 34% and the 23%.
Yeah. Well, if you had that success, you just know
what's worked.
Yeah, what's worked, and you can easily mimic that, or change it to fit your new business needs and then next venture.
Yeah, the next chapter here is planning is guessing. Long-term plans are rigid and often irrelevant. Businesses should prioritize adaptability and improvisation.
Yeah, this fits right into the dark horse mindset. When you have that fixed path, you're not going to go outside of the guardrails when the external environment is demanding that you go outside of those external guardrails, because the environment's ever changing, ever adapting. So if you cannot adapt yourself, you're not gonna make it.
Yeah, the problem with business plans is they let the past drive the future. And how many books have we read where it's talking about you need to let go of your past because it will drastically change your future, right? If you're constantly thinking about what happened in the past or what you did in the past, you can't control the past at all, right? So you just kind of have to forget about it and keep going and move on to the next steps.
Yeah. Awesome. Next is bigger isn't always better. Growth for growth's sake isn't the goal. A business should aim for sustainability and effectiveness, not just expansion.
Yeah, grow slow and see kind of what feels right. Premature hiring is the death of many companies.
Yeah, because everybody just wants growth. That, like when they say, oh, how big is the company you own and operate? Yeah. And they say like 50 employees, they're just gonna be like, oh, versus if you say 2,000, they're gonna be like, oh man, he's really doing big stuff, but that really doesn't matter.
No.
And that's like if saying Harvard University, if they just expanded their campuses, hired more professors, then they would be an even better university. But that kind of ruins the point of why it's so small.
Exactly. Going on to the next chapter here, scratch your own itch. The best products come from solving your own problems. If you build something you need, others will likely also feel like they need it.
Yeah, and when you scratch your own itch, you fall in love more with a product, and you have a deeper passion, and which will translate into a purpose to solve that problem for your clients or customers.
Yeah. Next year we have start now. Action is more valuable than excessive planning. Get your product or your idea out there and refine it as you go.
Yeah, so what you do is what matters, not what you think or say or plan. So we can sit here and talk about the vast ideas that we have.
We've had so many ideas, and that's the thing about ideas. Until you actually start making something, your brilliant idea is just that, an idea.
Yeah, and this just hits on exactly what we were just talking about, where planning is guessing.
Yeah.
Like, you just have to go and figure it out along the way, because it doesn't really matter what kind of plan we put together. Like, it's going to change.
At what point do you draw the line in the sand?
Yeah, so this is actually our next thing here, and you have to remind yourself of your why, because when you don't know what you believe, everything becomes an argument and is debatable. But when you stand for something, the decisions that you have to make day in and day out can be obvious almost at times.
Yeah, one of the examples that the book was talking about was Vinny's Sub Shop in Chicago, and when they don't really have hours. When they run out of the fresh bread that they made that morning, they close shop. And it's like, would you rather eat at a place that values the fresh ingredients or just some generic chain like Subway?
Yeah, and so they just didn't even have to make the decision on what hours they were doing, because they were sticking to their why of serving quality sandwiches.
Exactly. Next here, you have to embrace the constraints. Limitations/constraints, they fuel creativity. This allows for no waste and forces you to make do with what you've got.
Yeah, so there's two examples here that he highlighted. First, Southwest Airlines has a unique business structure. They put constraints on, they only have one type of plane that they fly. But this allows all of their stewardesses and pilots and crew to be able to operate one plane. They don't have to know how to operate 5 or 6 different aircrafts.
No.
Plus, it saves them money in the long run, because all of their shops can service the planes because they all have the same parts.
Keep it simple, stupid.
Yeah.
That's essentially what it's saying here. And my question to you is it better to have half of a product or a half-assed product?
It's better to have half a product that's of quality standard.
I agree.
So you have to focus on perfecting a core feature instead of stretching too thin with an incomplete, mediocre product.
Yep.
And this is what you were talking about, like, focus on the great stuff.
Yep.
And omit all that good or fluff, because that can be added later down the line.
Yeah, sometimes you have to cut the good scenes in order to have a great film.
So next year is ignore the details early on. You have to nail the basics before sweating the small stuff. So architects, when they're building a house, for example, they don't care about the tile that goes into the shower until the entire floor plan is developed. So it's kind of the idea. You have to start with drawing with a Sharpie and then go back in with a ballpoint pen and add the details.
Yeah, the next thing here is quick decision making leads to progress. Overanalyzing and delaying decisions hinder momentum. Small, fast choices, they build the momentum. You have to keep the momentum going.
Yeah, small, quick wins. And you have to go more in with a decision mindset, or how can we make a bunch of small, tiny decisions, because it's like each decision is building a foundation, and you can get to the top of that by saying we're done.
Yeah.
But if you just sit there and we'll decide on that later, you can't say that you're done. You can't learn from what went wrong, and you can't iterate.
Yeah.
So it's all about making small decisions fast.
Whenever you can swap, let's think about it, for let's decide on it, do it. And if you do end up making a mistake, you can always go back in the future and fix it. Because, at the same time, in the future, a solution to a problem that you've had in the past can be completely different from what you originally had thought.
Yeah. So now he goes into some productivity hacks, and this first theme is called, like, the reason to quit. It's easy to put your head down and just work on what you think needs to be done, but that's not always the best case scenario. It's a lot harder to pull your head up and ask, why are you really working on this?
Yeah.
So constantly be asking yourself these questions. Why are you doing this? What problem are you solving? Is this actually useful? Are you adding value? Will this change behavior? Is there an easier way? What could you be doing instead? Is it really worth it?
Yeah, and sometimes abandoning what you're working on is the right move, even if you've already put in a lot of time and effort. Don't throw good time after bad work.
Yeah. Next is interruptions. He talks a lot about in this book where overwork it shouldn't happen.
No.
He goes on to stay here. If you're constantly staying late and working weekends, it's because you're not getting enough done at work, and the reason for this is the interruptions. And this is meetings, talking with your coworkers.
On your phone. Yeah, when you're trying to cut out interruptions, you need to let go of the communication addiction that we all have.
Yeah.
We're always trying to communicate with somebody that could be halfway across the world. But, if you're really trying to get that deep focus, that deep work done, you just kind of have to forget about everything else and solely focus on what you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, time block like hours at a time, because that's when you tend to get the most done. Not when you have 30 minutes between this meeting and this meeting, or 15 minutes until lunch. You're not going to get anything productively done in that time frame.
Yeah, and sometimes good is fine, right? Good enough is fine. Perfectionism slows progress. Get things done efficiently instead of obsessing over unnecessary refinements.
Yeah, they call this the judo solution. I'm getting the most out of doing the least. So this is like, say your goal today at work is to get a bird's eye view of whatever you're working on. You could go climb Mount Everest by hiking it, or you could take the elevator to the top of the tallest building nearby. Yeah. And the judo solution would be taking the elevator, because it's the simplest solution that's going to get you basically the same result.
And at the same time, again, let me reiterate, if you've already spent too much time working on something that wasn't worth it, walk away. You can't get that time back. You have to cut your losses.
Yep. So now he goes into decommoditize your product. So you have to protect yourself from copycats by making you part of your product or service. You have to be authentic to what your product is and how you create it. Pour yourself into your product and everything around your product too. And this includes everything from how you sell it, how you support it, how you explain it, how you deliver it. Competitors can never copy the you in your product.
Yeah. Moving on to the next chapters here is marketing and promotion. Build an audience. Instead of chasing customers, create valuable content that makes them come back for you.
Yeah, and that's the important point. Like, you don't want to have to go to them, spend millions of dollars advertising. You want to find a way that you build that trust where they want to come to you to solve their problems.
Yeah, and teaching, storytelling, and transparency, they build long-term relationships and trust with your audience. And that's important. Trust with clients and customers is extremely important. And we'll kind of hit on customer service in a later portion of this video.
Yeah, so next here is...
But you also keep in mind, you have to be patient. Building an audience takes time, but organic loyalty is far more valuable than quick sales.
Yeah. Yeah, and that loyalty can be curated through education. Teach the customers how you're making your product, how to use their product, because they yearn for that, and that creates a lasting connection.
Yeah, sometimes showing behind the scenes makes your business more relatable and trustworthy, right? If people see what the kind of efforts that you're putting into the product, then they'll kind of be like, oh, well, like they're going out of their way to provide this for me. It's probably a good idea.
Yeah, and I have two quick examples for this. So why do you think famous chefs like Rick Bayless get remembered? Because there's thousands of great chefs. Like, why are only a few?
Mm-hmm.
Because they write down their information and share it with people. Like,
it's not a secret formula.
Yeah, and it's not like they're gonna go open a restaurant right next to his and put him out of business because they read his cookbook.
No.
The second one here is you gotta take, for example, how can you make fishing into something exciting?
Yeah.
The Discovery Channel did this very well when they created Deadliest Catch. Yeah. Like, they showed the behind the scenes, and and they created it like a reality TV show. So how can you kind of create that environment for your business?
Yeah, and don't be afraid to show your flaws. Imperfections make you human and more approachable. Also talk the way you actually talk. It's not a corporate language, It's like, this is how we actually are. This is how we actually talk. This is how we communicate. We're not throwing on some front just because we're recording a video.
Yeah, be personal, be authentic.
Like, this is really us. That this is Landon and I'm Chris, and this is what we're doing right now.
Nice. So next here is kind of damage control and customer relations. First, you have to own your mistakes. When something goes wrong, somewhere, sometime or another, it's gonna get out. So it's better and it's best if it comes from you, and you can say how sorry you really are and explain exactly what happened.
Yeah, but keep in mind that speed is a key in customer service. Quick personal responses, they build loyalty and trust. Responding quickly to customers' concerns is one of the most important things that you can do.
Yeah, and an aside to that is you need everybody on the front lines at some point or another. Usually each business is kind of separate. You have your back office people and your front office people. And the front office people really know the demands and the requests that the customers are asking for. But the back end people don't. And they're really the ones that kind of create the foundation for the business most times. So how can you get everybody at the front line so they can really understand the demands of their customers?
Yep. And then to wrap this up, the last kind of segment we have here is say no by default. You can't please everybody. Stay focused on what you can do best instead of catering to every request.
Yeah, so just in summary, again, real quick, Rework challenges traditional business norms, emphasizing simplicity, agility, and action. Instead of overthinking and overplanning or overworking, the key to success is to focus on what truly matters, eliminate distractions, and execute efficiently.
Yep.
So now moving into our implementation segment. Last week we read Ego is the Enemy by Ryan Holiday. And for mine, I really wanted to focus on putting my ego aside, because even though I might not outwardly express it, it's constantly there in my head. So it even happened this morning. So I saw a newsletter and someone was doing some really cool things. So the first thing I thought was like, oh, I gotta send this to my friend. Like, who is this guy? Like, what does he think he's doing almost? And I don't know if it was like jealousy or envy or anything like that. But I was like, you know what? I'm gonna text this guy and be like, and I meant every word I said. And I was like, this is so cool. Like, keep going. Congrats on your job that he got. So that's just an example of how I'm trying to put that aside a little bit, put that voice away.
Yeah, for my implementation for last week, it was to go out of my way to talk to a stranger and who has more experience than what I do. And me and Lana kind of did this together on a different business concept. And we reached out to a couple different people and we got great feedback back, right? We got very good insight. And so now we're in the process of kind of refining our initial idea. But if we'd never sent those emails out to the people who we did, we would never know kind of where our idea stands compared to other people's ideas.
Yeah.
And that's the type of insight that you can gain from people who have more experience than you do.
Yeah. And then going into our implementations that we're going to put in effect this week. So first one for mine, I think we're both doing along the same lines, is I'm going to try to build our audience a little bit more. We're already trying to push it through social media.
Yeah, we kind of both tackle the audience thing, but through different channels, through different funnels. I'm more of like the social media, like the Instagram and the TikTok, and you're more of the YouTube and Spotify.
Yeah, so I'm going to try to share it personally with 5 people who I think will benefit from it, to kind of hopefully create
adding value to their lives from what we're able to provide.
Yeah.
And then mine's like you said is continue trying to build this audience that we're kind of slowly but surely getting to.
Yeah.
And like Rework talked about it, you have to be patient. This isn't a overnight thing. I mean, we're 25 episodes in now. We've been doing this for 6-7 months. It's just slow, but it's a grind. But we're all here for it.
Yeah. Awesome. So now moving into our favorite quotes from Rework. My one here is a question. If you're just gonna be like everyone else, why are you even doing this? This is talking about the competitors. Like if you're gonna copy someone else, then why are you even going into that business in the first place? Because it really should be for you. You should be fulfilling out your purpose. So I think that's a good question for everyone to reflect on, in your personal life, in your what you do for work, etc. So that's something that I will think about this week.
The quote that I had was, "Don't let yourself off the hook with excuses. It's entirely your responsibility to make your dreams come true." And that hits hard with me, because again, a brilliant idea is just that, it's an idea until you take the actionable steps in order to make your dreams come true.
Yeah, and I'm gonna hold you to that though, too.
I hope you do.
Awesome.
The next book that we'll be reading is The $100 Million Offers by Alex Hormozy. And this is kind of I've already kind of dove into the first half of the book, and there are a lot of good things to pull out of it, and so we're excited to be able to share that with you.
Yeah, and he has a pretty cool story as well.
Very cool story.
Awesome. So we just this wraps up this week's episode. We just want to thank you guys all for tuning in to another episode.
Yeah, check us out on Instagram, TikTok, Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts at Bound to Improve.
Awesome. We'll see you next week.